All right, let's pull back the curtain on one of the most incredible factories on the entire planet, and it's running inside of you right now. We're going to uncover the amazing process of how the food you eat gets transformed step by step into the energy that powers literally every single thing you do. So yeah, grab your hard hats. Our tour of your body's energy factory is starting now.
I mean, really think about that for a second. It's kind of mind-blowing, isn't it? That simple act of eating lunch kicks off this unbelievable microscopic chain reaction, from the fuel in that sandwich to the actual electricity firing in your brain that's letting you process my voice. There's a direct, unbroken line. And today, we're going to trace that exact line, step by step.
Okay, so before we start our factory tour, we have to meet the final product. It's this molecule called ATP. Now, the easiest way to get this is to think of it like cash, just plain old money. You see, your cells can't just use a chunk of bread or a fat molecule directly. That's not how it works. They have to convert all of it into this one universal currency, ATP, to pay for everything. And I mean everything, from a huge muscle contraction to just thinking a thought. It's happening billions of times every single second. So, to really get a handle on how this all works, here's our game plan. First, we'll visit the factory floor itself, see where it all happens. Then, we're going to watch the 4-stage production line in action. After that, we'll check out how the factory operates in what I call feast or famine mode. And finally, we'll take a look at what happens when this incredible system breaks down. All right, let's dive in. Every single factory needs a location, right? A power plant where the real work gets done. Well, in our cells, that power plant has a name. The mitochondrion. So take a look at this. This amazing, complex little structure is where the final, most productive stages of energy conversion take place. You've got literally trillions of these tiny powerhouses working for you 24/7. And you see all those intricate folds on the inside? Those aren't just for looks. They create a massive internal surface area. Think of it as cramming as much factory floor space as possible into a tiny building, all to host the millions of chemical reactions we're about to get into. Okay, so now let's head over to the actual production line. To make this whole thing easier to understand, we're going to break down what is an incredibly complex process into a much more manageable 4-stage assembly line that takes that raw food and turns it into pure usable energy. So here's the flow. It all comes down to these 4 steps. Stage 1, digestion. That's like the receiving dock at the factory, breaking down these big shipments of carbs, fats, and proteins into simple little parts. Then stage 2, takes all those different parts and converts them into one single standard component called acetyl-CoA. It's kind of like getting all your raw materials into one universally sized box. Stage 3 is the central engine, the Krebs cycle, which cracks that box open to release energy. And finally, stage 4 is the power grid, where that released energy is finally converted into huge amounts of our ATP currency. Now, let's zoom in on stage 3 for a second. This is the Krebs cycle. And yeah, I know, it looks incredibly intimidating. But don't worry about memorizing every little step. Just think of it like the intricate blueprints for a high-performance engine. The fuel, our acetyl-CoA, goes in, the engine turns, and energy gets extracted in this very controlled step-by-step way. Let's just simplify that whole complex diagram. The most important thing to see here is what actually comes out of the engine. For every single turn of this cycle, we get a little carbon dioxide, that's what you breathe out, a tiny bit of ATP, and most importantly, these special molecules, NADH and FADH2. Now, the absolute best way to think of these is as little fully charged shuttle buses. Their entire job is to pick up the high-energy electrons that are released in the Krebs cycle and drive them over to the final stage of our production line. And this is where the magic really happens. Welcome to the power grid, or what scientists call the electron transport chain. Here, our little shuttle buses, NADH and FAD2, they pull up and drop off their high-energy cargo. That energy is then used to pump protons across a membrane, creating this incredibly powerful gradient. It's almost exactly like a hydroelectric dam, building up a massive amount of water pressure. And then, all that pressure is released through this tiny molecular turbine, and as the protons flow through it, it spins and just cranks out tons and tons of ATP. This, right here, is where the real money is made. Okay, so we've got our factory and we've got our production line. But how does it know when to go full throttle and when to save resources? Well, that's all decided up in the control room, which cleverly shifts between a feast mode and a famine mode. So let me introduce you to the 2 factory managers, the hormones insulin and glucagon. After you eat a meal, your pancreas releases insulin. Think of insulin as the feast manager. It runs around telling all your body's cells to open their doors, take in glucose, and either use it for energy right away or, really importantly, store it for later.
Now, when you haven't eaten for a while, the other manager, glucagon, takes over. It's the famine manager, and its job is to tell your liver to break down those stored energy reserves and release them back into the blood to keep everything running smoothly. This table just lays out those two states perfectly. Over on the left, you've got the fed state. Insulin is high. The body is in an anabolic, or a buildup mode. It's taking in fuel and storing it. But on the right, in the fasting state, glucagon is high. The body literally flips a switch into a catabolic, or breakdown mode. It's releasing all that stored fuel to keep your energy level stable, especially for your brain, which is just a massive energy hog.
So we have this elegant, beautiful, self-regulating system. But what happens when the machinery breaks down, or the managers start giving the wrong signals? Well, this is where we start to see metabolic diseases, which are basically at their core failures in the energy factory.
A perfect example is diabetes. Let's look at the two main types through our factory analogy. In type 1, the body's own immune system has destroyed the cells that make insulin, so the feast manager is just gone. Poof. There's no one there to give the order to store fuel. But in type 2, the manager is there shouting instructions, but the factory workers, the cells, have become resistant. They just don't listen to the insulin signal properly. So the end result looks similar, but the root cause is completely different. And the consequences of this communication breakdown are massive. Without that insulin signal, glucose can't get into the cells. So it just gets stuck in the bloodstream, which is what causes high blood sugar. The entire process of storing fuel goes haywire. Fat and protein metabolism get all messed up too. This system-wide failure is exactly what leads to the really serious long-term damage that's associated with the disease. But it's not just about things breaking. Sometimes the factory gets, well, reprogrammed in some pretty dangerous ways. On the left, you see a normal cell using that super efficient mitochondria power plant we talked about. But look at the right. That's a cancer cell. It often hijacks the energy factory. Even when there's plenty of oxygen around, it prefers a much faster but way less efficient energy pathway. This metabolic switch has a name, the Warburg effect.
So you're probably asking, why on earth would a cell choose to be inefficient? It doesn't make sense, right? Well, it's because the cancer cell's main goal isn't maximum energy, it's maximum growth. This fast and dirty pathway might make less ATP, but it spits out tons of molecular building blocks, the raw materials it needs to build new cancer cells. It's basically reprogramming the factory away from energy production and towards rapid parts manufacturing for its own selfish needs.
And here's one last example, a logistics problem. Your liver, it acts like a big warehouse, storing glucose as this stuff called glycogen. In glycogen storage disease, there's a genetic defect. The special enzyme needed to release that stored glucose is just broken. The fuel is sitting there in the warehouse, but the doors are locked. The workers can't get it out, which leads to dangerously low blood sugar between meals. So after all that complexity, the controls, the things that can go wrong, let's end with the final incredible output. From that whole 4-stage production line, from one single molecule of glucose, this amazingly efficient factory can generate approximately 32 units of ATP. Think about that for a second. 32 units of pure cellular cash from one tiny molecule of sugar. The efficiency is just absolutely extraordinary. So as we turn off the lights in the factory for today, here's a final thought. We've just seen the intricate, elegant, and finely tuned machinery that converts your food into your life. Now, knowing how hard your body works to manage this whole process, what does that make you think about the quality of the raw materials you decide to supply it with every single day? It's definitely something to chew on. Thanks for joining me.